Over the weekend, it was a big old, I don't know how I want to put it. It was a big old hoopla. All kind of conspiracies came out and why and this, that, and the third about why Shador Sanders wasn't picked, or should I say, why he dropped in the draft to get picked in a later round when everybody expected him to go in the first round. Well, everybody, um, who don't really understand football expected him to go in the first round. And that's not a diss toward him because he was a great player, and I do believe that he was a first round talent. But when these NFL teams are picking players, this is what people got to understand. When these NFL teams are picking a player, especially a quarterback, but any player, they picking basically a CEO of their company to run their company. And as I said, like I say, the quarterback is the most important position on the field. This is gonna be a guy who's gonna have to lead a locker room, have to lead several other guys. He's gonna have to be the leader in that locker room. You know, Dak Prescott in Dallas, he get a bad rap for being a bad quarterback, underperforming in big situations. But the reason why Dak has been able to remain in his position and get paid, in Dallas, one of the most polarizing organizations in football, is because his intangibles. Intangibles mean a lot to any player that's getting drafted in the NFL, but it means everything for a quarterback. And so with all that being said, that's why Shador dropped in the draft. I heard a lot of things. Heard it was because his race. Absolutely not. The first pick was black. Then they said, oh, he's too flashy and arrogant. Johnny Manziel, who, in my opinion, was the best college football player I've ever seen, was way flashier than him, and he went in the first round. And I would say Johnny Manziel was not as talented as him. I mean, in college he was, but not just overall, physique and just ability. I don't think he is better than Shador, but he went in the first round and he was flashy than a mug. And if you was around for the Johnny Manziel era, man, it was amazing. And in my time, I've seen some great college football players. Reggie Bush, Vince Young, they got to be in my top five. But I had to go off Johnny Manziel being the most exciting. I've never seen nobody like him in college football, especially at that particular time. This is a guy who was a little bitty white guy, man. He was a freshman and went in Tuscaloosa and kicked Nick Saban dough in, and he did it the next year after that. And I just watched what this dude was able to do, on the college age level, and to me, like I said, because that's opinionated, he's the best I've ever seen. I'm 37. I did see a lot of players. I've heard a lot about how great O.J. Simpson was, but that's before my time. I've seen highlights, but that's before my time. But Johnny Manziel, man, was the most awesomest, amazing, electrifying, exciting player that I've seen in college football, just to touch on that. Then you heard people saying, well, he's not that good. He can't read a defense. He hold the ball too long. Well, this guy was a Heisman finalist, and what he was able to do at Colorado, with the help of his great father and great coach, Deion Sanders, and Travis Hunt and a lot of other pieces, and just completely turn the Colorado organization around, has to be noted. I watched a lot of Shador Sanders play. And this guy was a Heisman finalist, but not just he was a Heisman finalist. They say he another thing they were saying, he only beat one ranked team. But I watched this guy intently, and I'm pretty good with quarterbacks. I've been right over the years when I say somebody gonna pop and somebody not. Of course, I'm wrong sometimes. I didn't think Jaden Daniels was gonna do what he did or what he doing. But going back to Shador, man, I've seen him and I like his play. he do play, he got like a he don't play like your average black quarterback. He will run, but he's a pocket quarterback. And he hold the ball a little long. It's not because he can't read defense, because he don't want to just throw a ball into a bad situation to get intercepted. He don't like throwing interceptions. I would liken his play to Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. And I'm not saying he is great as they are yet, but I watched Tom Brady at Michigan, which is he didn't really get a lot of playing time. But I watched Aaron Rodgers at Cal. And if you watch Aaron Rodgers at Cal, the way he would hold the ball was kind of ugly, but he would hold it a long time. But his reasoning for that, because he didn't like to throw interceptions. And we know today in the NFL, he had the best touchdown interception ratio of any quarterback. He went one season where he threw 45 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. And so this guy, I love Shedeur, and I believe that Shedeur is going to be I love Cam Ward. No disrespect, no diss toward him. But I do believe Shedeur is going to be the best quarterback come out of this draft. I really do. I really honestly believe that when he get his opportunity, he's over there in Cleveland with a heavy quarterback room. Jameis Winston over there, whom I love. He don't really have a high quarterback IQ. He throw a lot of interceptions by forcing balls, but I do love I love James Winston. I always loved him all the way since his Florida State days. I think he's a great quarterback. I just feel like his IQ is low because he throw a lot of interceptions. He said it was because of his vision, but it is what it is. But I do believe Shedeur is going to get the starting job eventually. And he's going to do great things. And again, I think he's going to be the best quarterback that came out of the 2025 draft. And the next thing you heard people were saying, like I say, it was about his intangibles. But everyone in his organization speak highly of his leadership. Everybody. And his father held him to a higher standard. But I ran into, like I said, I heard all of those different things about why he dropped in the draft. His flashiness, because he was black, which is just most stupid and asinine thing I've heard. Because of his intangibles and because of his play, all of those things were wrong. But I will say this, I heard a lot of people, but I ran into this gentleman here, I don't know his name, but he's a sports commentator on CBS, and he had the best take, the best logical take of why I should do a drop. I agree with him. I'm going to let him speak, and of course, after he finished, I'm going to chime in.
And I think that this is the NFL starting to take a stand with all the changes that we are seeing in the climate of college football. These kids, they have a lot of power, and especially a kid like Shedeur, whose father happens to be Deion Primetime Sanders. Kids hold all of the control and all the power when it comes to college football. Whenever that starts to transcend and work its way and leak and creep into the NFL, that's when the owners are going to put their foot down. That's when the league is going to put its foot down and say enough is enough. And I think this is the perfect example of it. And unfortunately, it does have to be Shedeur. We can sit here and talk about how great he is as a quarterback, how accurate he is, how he stands in the pocket and delivers the football under pressure. He does a lot of things well. But at the end of the day, this is not about Shedeur's play. This is about the fact that he is the most polarizing, the brightest example of what college football is becoming. And he is going to suffer because of it. He is suffering because of it, because the NFL is looking at him like he's our prime suspect of somebody we can make an example out of and send a message. And that is exactly what the NFL is doing.
Absolutely spot on. See, a lot of these players today, back then they didn't have that. They didn't have what you call NIL. NIL is name, image, and likeness. And a lot of these players are making so much money. Shedeur Sanders was leading all college age athletes, I believe, bringing in $6 million a year. And what happens to these young men is they're being given all of this money, and I think they deserve it. Before I go, I do believe they deserve it. These colleges make so much money off these young men. They deserve to be compensated. And I don't, a lot of people say, well, they're going to get compensated when they make it to the NFL. What if they don't make it to the NFL? We've seen Heisman Trophy winners not make it to the NFL or be successful in the NFL. And they made the college all of this money when they were successful there. So I agree with it, but it has kind of ruined college football. And this is why you see Nick Saban retiring. You know, Nick Saban loved the game, man. Nick Saban is probably the best coach I've ever seen in my time. Um, there's a lot of other coaches I love. Of course, Urban Meyer is one of my favorite, Mac Brown. But I will have to say Nick Saban is the best coach I've ever seen coach football again in my time. I'm 37. And Nick had to go, you know, because Nick is used to having young men come to him and play for him and play their heart out because they love the game and they respect what he did in the game and the success he's had in the game. But now it's not about that. It's about who has the bigger who is going to pay them the most NIL money. And, you know, Nick just couldn't handle that. So Nick left. But the NFL is being affected by this now because you have a lot of young men who they coming into the league arrogant and their mind is set on, listen, I'm making all this money in college. I got all this money power in college. And so I'm going to tell the NFL team what I'm going to do, what I'm not going to do. Or in a situation with Caleb Williams, his fault even went so far as to saying that he wanted a percentage of the ownership in the Chicago Bears. I ain't mad at it, but I mean, you know, this is what's going on. And so the NFL, this brother said, they made an example out of Shador, and he's the perfect person to do that with because one, his dad is a legend. His dad is respected around the league. And of course, as I said, as for mentioned, he's the highest NIL earner. You know, this guy made backs and, you know, hundreds of $1,000s in jewelry in college. And so they had to make an example out of him from the NFL perspective of, listen, because clearly they colluded. Clearly all of these NFL team owners colluded and said, because plenty of these guys need quarterbacks. And plenty of the quarterbacks went before him that had no business going before him. Dylan Gabriel, Tyler Shuck. Like, what are we doing here? But they had colluded and said, we're going to make sure he wait in the later round. We got to humble him before he come into this league. And not so much as him. He's a perfect, like this brother said, he's a perfect example and a perfect person for them to do that with because why? He's the highest earner and who his father is. So he thought that because of those two things, they had Mr. Shador arrogant, not to mention with his talent. So with all those three things combined, Shador felt untouchable. My dad is Dion. I'm talented and I got money. I got power. But the NFL team has all the power. It's almost like, you know, the equivalent of women and men. Like, you know, women have the control over who they get a vagina to, but men have control over who marry you. And in this situation, Shador was the woman and the NFL was the man. They, you know, that's fine, but you can't stay in college forever. Your dream is to be an NFL player. And you want a career playing football and getting paid for it, and we have that power. So we're going to humble you and your ego, which is I know his ego was hurt. Mine was hurt for him. So we're going to humble you and any player coming after you that know that, okay, I'm in college. I'm getting a lot of NIL money. I'm talented. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. Now I'm going to go to the draft and be arrogant now and make an NFL team do what I want them to do, or they going to steal draft. No, they going to look at what happened with him and say to themselves, man, listen, that dude is Dion's son of a legend, rich, talented, and he a quarterback. If they did that to him, we got to get our mind right. And this is going to trickle down. The agent is going to be telling this to their client. This what they just did with him was a message that they sent out to all players that's currently in college, going to college, and they killed that ego stuff. That was dead. And that was their whole issue of doing it. It wasn't nothing about black. It wasn't about his play. Wasn't about his flashness. Wasn't about his intangible. It was because of that. They made an example out of him. And who better for them to make an example out of than a legend, than a son of a legend. The highest #1 NIL earner and a great quarterback. Thank y'all for listening.